you're saying that God, like, there's an objective good.
Yes.
And so, like, considering the fact that God is ultimately good.
Yes.
And being ultimately good, no evil can come from him. Yes. And over time, we've seen that, okay, genocide is wrong.
Yes.
And then came from God. According to scriptures,
good.
In the case of King
good.
Saul.
In the case of Saul and,
Does that not mean that in God can exist both good and evil?
So, very good question. The answer to this is the category of God. What I mean by that is this. We are appropriating God into a human context. And we are judging him by human standards. So we say he did wrong when he orders people to do what he will not allow others do. Did you get what I said? What I mean by that is this. If I create a thing, I can't murder it. I'll say that again. If I created a thing, I can't murder it. Man can murder another man because he does not have the right to. You can commit suicide because you don't have the right to take your own life because you don't own it. But you see, God, when he takes a life, it's not murder. You are considering it along the human balance and categorizing it just as much of a murder as when someone else takes another person's life. No. Sometimes God will do things as an act of mercy, but you cannot wrap your head around why it is mercy. If you check it, God had a standard, a rubric that the Amalekites had overrun. So remember when God came down to Abraham and Abraham was negotiating for the lives of the people in Sodom. And God was willing to negotiate. And God was giving him an impression that, see, the place where the iniquities of the people of Sodom and Gomorrah had reached, it has tipped the line of judgment for me to come down. So I can't just judge without a reason, but you got to trust it. You are not privy to that parameter. You are not privy to that metric. You know, you are not privy to that metric that God uses, but God has a metric. That is, it took 400 years for them to be able to execute that judgment because it took 400 years for their cup to be full. That was why the children of Israel actually spent 400 years in Egypt. Did you hear what I said? They spent 400 years because God was trying to satisfy a certain judgment metric. That is, if he had allowed them invade those lands before time, he would be unjust. So that he would be just, he kept them for 400 years. And he told Abraham ahead of time. He foreknew that these guys will not repent and they will continue to sin. And by the time they continue to sin, it will get to a certain threshold where judgment must be meted. And the same thing goes for Sodom and Gomorrah. And so it gets to the point where you sin and you sin and you sin. Remember the hardness of heart. He also knows the point where your hardness tilts into apostasy. No man knows that, but God knows. Because he has all knowledge. And so when he judges, he's judging from the highest standard of justice. Nobody can be more just than him. If anybody is just, it's because there is a God that is justice personified. So if anybody can execute or demonstrate fairness, it is because there is fairness personified. And if that God chooses to judge a certain people at a certain time, if you kill someone if the judge sentences a man by firing squad, he hasn't done evil. In fact, he has done good for the society. Because of the category of that kind of killing. It is not murder. Because of the category. So, when God takes the life of some people and you categorize it exactly like how another person will take another person's life, you have a category error on that action. Because he created human beings. He can take a life. Because to you now, when you kill someone, you have killed. To God, death is transition. So if he executed transition, the person never died. He had just transitioned from life, the way we know it to be, to another kind of life. Because the soul of man really never ends. And so God is in a realm where we must not attempt to reduce him to the same category that we are as human beings. And I understand how difficult this, especially this one that you just asked, this can be to rationalize and wrap your head around. Like, why would God order genocide? Like genocide. Children, what did they do? He knew most likely what leaving them alive could devolve into. By the way, these Amalekites were already sacrificing their children anyways. Do you realize? They were already they were passing their children through fire. They were doing so much atrocities. If they stayed alive, the likelihood that they will spread that dangerous tendency. I mean, look at what is going on now. The West is coming into Africa, telling people to, receive LGBTQ as culture and all of these things. Those things are spreading. Do you see? Because if you stay in a particular condition and there is no judgment done, there can be a potential spread. A good example will be cancerous cells. The moment cancerous cells are noticed in a part of the body, the doctors will recommend that part be cut out so that it does not spread into other healthy cells. Because if it spreads into other healthy cells, you will now need to take out the life of the person itself. So the good in that context is to take out the cancerous cell. So when God sees that perspective, he knows what something could devolve into, and it takes out a portion of people who could spread cancer to other parts of civilization. He has actually done good because he's all good, instead of categorizing it as evil. And I know it's still complex, even after my explanation. I know it's still complex. But trust, and that is why no amount of debate can lead to faith. Because at the end of the day, you've just still got to trust God, that he knows what he's doing, and have faith in him. Do you see? I hope that answers your question.